As World War II gradually came to a close, a sardonic saying circulated among German soldiers: "Enjoy the war, for peace will be hell." This reflected a grim acknowledgement of the severe challenges that lay ahead once the Allies proclaimed victory. However, even the most cynical soldier of the Third Reich could not have foreseen the harsh mass expulsion of Germans that occurred in Eastern Europe following the war. Over 12 million Germans and ethnic Germans were forcibly removed from nations such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Yugoslavia, and Russia. A significant number of these refugees either perished, were executed, or were sent to forced labor camps across Eastern Europe and Russia. For Germans residing outside rural West Germany, this marked the onset of a brutal phase of so-called peace. Several factors contributed to the mass expulsion. Many Eastern Europeans, having suffered atrocities at the hands of the Nazis, sought retribution against the Germans, regardless of whether those targeted had any involvement with the Nazi regime. Additionally, geopolitical considerations played a role. The Allied powers, namely the United States, Britain, and the USS, reached a consensus that German minorities in Eastern Europe should be relocated, either back to Germany or into labor camps to aid in war reparations. This strategy aimed to eliminate any potential resurgence of fascism in the future. The issue was a significant topic at the Potsdam Conference in 1945, where it was agreed that dismantling German populations outside of Germany was essential. Churchill articulated this sentiment by stating that expulsion would be the most satisfactory method. Lasting proceeded to delineate the Allied strategy aimed at establishing ethnically homogeneous states, which was perceived as the most effective means to ensure stability across Europe. Churchill asserted that the absence of population mixing would prevent potential conflicts. For centuries, Germans had sought to settle in various regions of Europe, leading to millions of ethnic Germans residing in Poland, Russia, Hungary, Romania, and other areas. As World War II erupted, mass expulsions commenced within 2 years, initiated well before the Potsdam Conference, with Russia taking swift action in 1941. Stalin mandated the large-scale deportation of ethnic Germans from the USSR, relocating them to labor camps in Siberia and Central Asia. As the war progressed and Germany's control over Europe diminished, a significant number of Germans fled westward in 1944. As the Red Army advanced through Eastern Europe towards Berlin, many were aware of the horrific fates that awaited them if captured. Among those escaping the Soviet forces were individuals as young as 3 years old, alongside the frail, elderly, and those suffering from illness or injury. Regardless of their condition, they were compelled to keep moving, often enduring severe blizzards. Polish historians estimate that between 600,000 and 1 million Germans perished during their flight from the Russians, succumbing to the harsh conditions, starvation, or capture. This period marked a harrowing chapter in Eastern European history. In early 1945, Hitler ordered the transportation of approximately 250,000 Germans to Denmark. At that time, the area remained under occupation, with the majority of refugees being children, the elderly, or women. Following the German surrender, these individuals were placed in refugee camps, where thousands perished. They remained in Denmark until 1949, after which Denmark presented Germany with a substantial bill for compensation and the expenses incurred in housing the refugees. The Potsdam Conference initiated the first systematic expulsion of Germans. The precise figures regarding the number of individuals expelled and those who died are challenging to ascertain due to inconsistent records. Nevertheless, It is evident that between 1945 and 1950, Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia alone expelled over 7 million people, most of whom were transported to either West or East Germany through organized mass movements. Although it may not have appeared so at the time, those expelled to West Germany were relatively fortunate. Initially, the country lay in ruins and faced a significant war reparations bill. However, West Germany would soon undergo reconstruction and evolve into one of Europe's most developed nations. Many of the expelled individuals settled in rural regions, such as Bavaria and Hesse in the south, where there was ample space. Stalin supported the expulsion concept, recognizing the potential benefits for himself. He understood that it would foster tensions between Germany and the Eastern nations that had carried out the expulsions. Consequently, countries like Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia would require Soviet protection. Communism was already gaining a foothold in these regions, with numerous Eastern Europeans celebrating the sudden acquisition of fertile land for settlement. Stalin was intent on expelling all individuals of German descent residing in the East. The Odra River in Central Europe was home to various ethnic Germans who resided in areas that subsequently became part of Soviet territories. Poland, in particular, had one of the largest populations of ethnic Germans and initiated their expulsion in early 1945. By mid-1945, approximately 4.5 million Germans were present in Polish territory. By 1950, around 3 million had been expelled to Germany, while another million chose to remain as naturalized Polish citizens. The region that is now the Czech Republic also had a significant German population. In early 1945, it was estimated that 4.5 million German civilians lived in what was then Czechoslovakia. From mid-1945 onward, the majority of these Germans were expelled, with 2 million being sent to West Germany and over 1 million to what would later become East Germany. An additional 250,000 were permitted to remain, but under stringent conditions. German men married to Czech women were expelled, whereas German women married to Czech men were allowed to stay. Those Germans deemed economically valuable were permitted to remain and were employed as engineers, craftsmen, or laborers. At the onset of World War II, nearly 800,000 ethnic Germans resided in Romania. This situation changed rapidly in 1940 when Soviet troops entered Bessarabia and Bukovina, which were eastern Romanian territories. Approximately 140,000 Germans from these areas were resettled in Nazi-occupied Poland. The Romanian government maintained a pro-German stance during the war, allowing nearly 60,000 ethnic Germans to be conscripted for military service. However, as Soviet forces advanced westward, many Germans chose to flee. Approximately 100,000 Germans fled Romania alongside the retreating forces. The fortunate among them reached what would later be known as West Germany. At least 75,000 Romanian Germans were captured and deported to labor camps in the USSR, where many perished. The 400,000 ethnic Germans who remained in Romania were viewed as collaborators with the Nazis and faced severe treatment. They were stripped of their civil rights, with many losing their homes and properties, and were compelled to work under harsh conditions. While exact figures are challenging to determine, it is estimated that at least 100,000 of these Germans are unaccounted for, presumed either dead or having escaped. In 1948, Romania began the process of assimilating ethnic Germans as a minority group, allowing them to reside in the country and avoiding expulsion. In Hungary, there were over 450,000 German speakers in 1945. of whom 300,000 identified as German nationals during the war. Despite Hungary being an ally of Germany in World War II, the government adhered to the Potsdam Agreement and initiated the expulsion of German nationals. This expulsion aimed to free up land for redistribution to Hungarian citizens. Germans who had married Hungarian nationals were permitted to remain, while others were forcibly removed. Those with valuable skills, such as miners and engineers, were also allowed to stay. Ultimately, 180,000 were relocated to West Germany, 40,000 to East Germany, and nearly 100,000 to Austria. Similarly, in Yugoslavia, there was a strong sentiment of retribution against German citizens, with around 500,000 ethnic Germans present in the country prior to the conflict. In the final months of the conflict, approximately 300,000 individuals fled to Germany, while the remaining 200,000 Germans faced severe persecution due to the atrocities committed by the Nazis during the war. The distinction between collaborators and non-collaborators became irrelevant, as anyone with ethnic ties to Germany bore the consequences of the Yugoslavs' wrath. Nearly 10,000 were killed, and many lost their homes and possessions, with thousands being sent to notorious labor camps. It is estimated that close to 50,000 Germans perished in the Yugoslav labor camps alone, where guards often denied prisoners food, medical assistance, or executed them outright. This pattern of extreme resentment and violence was prevalent throughout the expulsions. Many of the expelled Germans sought refuge beyond Europe. Between 1945 and the early 1950s, over 1 million relocated to the United States, while an additional 270,000 moved to Canada. Others found new homes in Australia, South America, and even Palestine. The expulsions of Germans from Eastern Europe resulted in significant societal upheaval, placing immense demands on the new settlement areas, which had to accommodate, feed, and integrate the refugees. The exact number of deaths during these expulsions remains unknown, but historians estimate it could exceed 2 million. The relocation of Germans serves as a poignant reminder that the conclusion of hostilities does not necessarily lead to immediate peace and reconciliation, which can be a prolonged and arduous process.